Hello, welcome to the Sober Mom Life podcast. If you are new here, welcome. We tell the truth about alcohol, that it makes motherhood harder, and that it just fucks shit up. If you are returning, welcome back. I'm so glad you came back. I always appreciate you guys just tuning in with whatever I'm bringing you this episode. This is your bite-sized episode. So this is your 10, 15-minute episode that you can listen to as you're getting ready for your weekend. This is an episode to help you remember why you're doing this, what you're doing, and that actually, examining your relationship with alcohol in a world obsessed with it is really a badass thing you can do. It's probably the most badass move you can make, I think. And what we've been doing here on these Friday episodes, this is the weekend reset, is this is the 7th week of going through my book, The Sober Shift. I have it right here with me. And we are going through chapter by chapter. Each chapter in my book is a shift from the old way to think about, drinking and alcohol and sobriety to the way I like to think about it. And I think that it all starts with a perspective shift. I think that makes the biggest difference, probably in literally everything in life. So that's what my book does. My book shifts your entire perspective on this whole thing chapter by chapter. And I'm just kind of giving you an overview of each chapter. The book is a deep dive into all of these things. It's so funny. I received a message on Instagram the other day and she was like, I just finished your book and I absolutely loved it. And going into it, I was like, how is she going to fill an entire book? And I was like, I know, right? That is always the question. But you guys, I can talk. I've got thoughts. I I have ideas. And so my book, The Sober Shift, is filled with them. It's an extension of this podcast. And it really does hold your hand through this whole sobriety thing, this early sobriety thing, this sober curious thing. Even if you've got some time in sobriety and you need a little refresh, maybe pick it up. It comes in hardcover, ebook, and I read the audiobook. You guys, paperback is coming out in September. So I'll be talking a lot about that as we get closer to that. So, okay, we are on chapter 7 today. If you are just joining us, it's fine. You can hop right in. Each episode is also a standalone episode, so it's not like you have to go back, but you probably want to go back. So listen to this one today and then go back, start at chapter 1, and then you can catch up. Okay, so chapter 7, you guys are going to laugh because every week, I'm like, this is the chapter, this is the one. Chapter 7 is the shift from day 1 to celebrating sober firsts. So I want to go back to when I was in early sobriety. And it was probably, I don't even remember exactly how sober, definitely the first year. I realized pretty early on, and if you've listened to this podcast for a while, you know that I have never liked to count days in sobriety. And I realized that early on. I realized that the counting days and the day 1 situation, like, oh, I'm on day 1, just felt so punitive to me. It felt really like, oh, day 1. And I see this happen in our Facebook group. I see it happen online. I see some of you ladies posting, oh, I'm on day 1 again. Oh my gosh. And what I want to do is I always want to reach through my screen and give you a giant hug and say, no, you're not. No, you are not. You are not on day 1. You're not on day 1. If alcohol has come in and, you've fallen into old habits or you've counted on it again or whatever the situation, you have not lost everything that has gotten you to that point. And that is not a failure. We call that in the cafe, it is a data point that you can learn so much from. You are not starting over. There is no starting over in this thing. This is life. This is a life-changing experiment that you're on. You are never starting over. I begin this chapter. It's a quote that I come back to a lot. It's Heraclitus. I don't know, sounds like a Greek philosopher, right? But he says, no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river and he's not the same man. And in our instance, we'll say woman or man, whatever you want to say. You're not stepping in the same river. You're not the same person you were before alcohol came back in. You have not only learned from when you quit drinking before that, but you've also learned from inviting alcohol back in. You are a different person. You have never been who you are today, looking at your relationship with alcohol and all of the experience and stories and knowledge that you have gained comes with you. So if you've ever gotten kind of stuck in this, like, oh, I'm on day one again, oh, I'm starting over cycle, this chapter is your permission to throw that out. And I threw that out very early on. I threw out the day counting, the day 25, day 60. I write a lot about that in this book because that just never felt right to me. And so I think very early on, the idea of sober firsts really excited me and it really helped motivate me. And I remember very specifically my first sober vacation. It was just about 3 weeks into my sobriety, and we went on our trip to Florida. And, I had never done a vacation sober. Pregnancy, I always say it doesn't count in situations like this because I wasn't choosing to be sober. I just, my sobriety had been kind of forced upon me. And so I didn't count pregnancy in that, I really hadn't been on vacation sober as an adult. And so I went into that first sober vacation very nervous, not knowing how I was going to feel, scared, just really a lot of questions, right? And knowing that I didn't want to drink, but not knowing how it would go. And, I write a lot about that in the book that I, focused on my mornings instead of the evenings. My beach run became very important to me. And I got through that first sober vacation. It wasn't the best vacation I had ever had because it still felt pretty new and it felt like, okay. But I got home and I was like, wow, I did that. I did that. I did my first sober vacation. And the kind of momentum and motivation that I felt coming home from that, having done that, for me, superseded any sort of like day count that I could feel propelled by. I felt way motivated by that. And so then I started thinking of these like sober firsts. And what if my journey, you guys know I hate that word, but there's not another word for it. What, adventure? I don't know. What if this sober thing that I was doing could be marked by these sober firsts in my life, and I could look forward to kind of crossing those off and experiencing those, and yes, sometimes just getting through those. And so I looked at my calendar, what was coming up, which was hilarious because it was a pandemic shortly after that, just a couple of weeks later. And so nothing was coming up. But the good news is I got my first sober pandemic out of the way, and you guys, even that, you could do that sober. So yeah, I was sidelined a little bit by that. But then after that, when the world started to open back up and the weddings started happening, the concerts, the dinner parties, the holidays, right? All of it. My first sober summer, my first sober pool party, my first sober 4th of July was very special. So I really did look at those, and instead of something that could have felt like, oh, well, I obviously can't stop drinking because I have my cousin's wedding coming up. And so I have to drink at a wedding because I always have. I flipped it. And I said, okay, oh, I've never been to a wedding sober before. I wonder what it's like. And that shift in perspective going into this event, saying, I don't know how it's going to go, but let's see. Man, you guys, I can't tell you what a difference that made. And yes, I learned, what to drink instead, what to do with my hands, what to tell people. All of those things are very important. But the most important part for me about Sober First was that I learned I could count on myself. And that, I've said it before and I'll say it 1,000 times again, is my favorite thing about sobriety. is coming home from a vacation, coming home from, a wedding, coming home from a concert, something in that early sobriety that I didn't think I could do sober, and coming home and knowing that I did it, knowing that I could do it, knowing that I was scared and I did it anyway, knowing that I can count on myself, and that also it is way much better. P.S. Like, it's not like I was, it was a big downer throughout all of these experiences sober. No, it was quite the opposite. Once I started to really open my mind to say, okay, let's see what this experience can be like without alcohol. Oh my God, it's so much better. And it's so much more fun. And yes, you can dance and concerts. Oh, all of them. Hard? Sure. Sometimes they were hard. And, I had to get gritty and really like, all right, let's hunker down. But most of the time, I was met with, oh my gosh, just this sense of gratitude and curiosity and accomplishment. And nothing could compare to that. Nothing. And so I want you this weekend to think about what Sober First you have coming up, and whether that's a first sober Saturday. Get as specific as you want to here. You can, start a list with specific ones, with general ones, with, some maybe out there on the calendar in 6 months. Look ahead to see what you have coming up that might have stopped you before, that now you can shift that into saying, that would be a really fucking great sober first to get through. I would feel like a supreme badass getting through that and being able to cross that off my sober first list. And then what kind of reward are you giving yourself as you crossed off the sober firsts? I don't know, get creative with it. And really, how are you going to cheer yourself on? How are you going to share this with your partner, with your family, with your friends, with the ladies in the cafe, right? In the Facebook group, like saying, hey, this is a great sober first. And the cool thing is, you guys, is I am over 6 years sober, and the sober firsts don't stop. And I think that is just, as a 45-year-old, 6 years sober woman, that's amazing to me, that I can still have this kind of perspective of, wow, what do I get to experience for the first time? Really just being present and fully aware and awake. I mean, what a gift. What a gift. And then really come home and to say, wow, I did that. Like, I did that. I didn't reach for alcohol. Alcohol did not swoop in to be the hero here. That was me. And that is you. That is you. You can do this. You don't need alcohol to take over. You don't need to do what you've always done and let it in the driver's seat. I mean, literally, don't do that. I think that we are just so much more capable than we know. And giving ourselves a chance to see that is where so much possibility and magic lies, truly. So as you go about this weekend, think about that. Maybe start your list. And I'd love to hear, I want to hear what's on your list. I want to hear your sober firsts. Come and tell me on Suzanne Where I Instagram. You can comment on the podcast. You can on Spotify, you can comment. Otherwise, you can leave it in a review and tell me. I love to hear from you guys. You can email me. I will leave all of that in the show notes so that you can tell me what sober first you have coming up. Tell me what sober first you've already felt, that you conquered and that you're so proud of. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you for doing this thing. I never want you to lose sight of how amazing and generational changing it is. You literally are changing generations, and you're paving a new path for you and your kids and everybody. So thank you for listening. And I will leave, actually, I'm going to leave in the show notes also. I just created a guide for your first sober vacation. It's a 5-day, it's free. It's just an email series where I show up in your email inbox for 5 days to help you kind of walk you through your first sober vacation. So whether you have one coming up or you're leaving soon, just to have this in your inbox to kind of hold your hand through it, because you're not alone in this whole thing. You're not alone. Don't forget, pick up my book, The Sober Shift. I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but because I think it's good, and I love that you're loving it. I do. I love hearing from you. Let me know. Yes, and thank you. Thank you for listening, and let's meet back here on Monday for another full-size episode, and then again next Friday for a little bite-size weekend reset. Okay. Thank you. Keep going. Bye.